Hello, I'm Bud McCord. I'm here in Brazil, South America. Welcome to Food for Thought, Thinking with Jesus. Our subject for today is one of the most dangerous words in any vocabulary or in any language. The word is pride. Pride. There's a very good argument to be made that pride is behind everything that truly troubles humanity. To have pride, according to the scriptures, is to seek death instead of life. Very serious subject. Let me read the devotional for today. We'll think about this subject, and you can take these thoughts to Jesus. And this is the condemnation, that the light has come into the world, and men loved darkness rather than light, because their deeds were evil. When we walk and live in the light, it becomes clear to us what is done in cooperation with God and what is not in cooperation with God. The person who is in the dark hates and fears the light. The person in the dark is too proud to leave the darkness where they believe they have control. In the darkness, a person can live with the illusion that they do not need God to be the person they want to be. When we come into the light, we understand that we are incapable of living well without divine intervention in our lives. It is human pride that keeps us from accepting the reality of our need of God. Jesus was hated and rejected because he was the light, which destroys human pride. Jesus is the perfect revelation of what a human being should continuously be 24 hours a day and 7 days a week. His presence in the world, Jesus' presence in the world as light, destroyed the illusion of the human ability without God. Jesus said in John 15:5, "Without me, you can do nothing." This word from Jesus settles the issue about what we can do without Jesus, the true vine. Without him in our lives and as our life, we can do nothing that satisfies our Creator. It is in this light that we must walk each day. If pride still exists in our lives, it is because we are still holding on to an illusion. The end of our illusions creates a sense of loss and pain at first. The pain passes as we walk in the light and we sense our new freedom in Christ. Letting the light destroy our illusions is worth it. Just as the darkness of night must give way to the rising of the sun each morning, we must be awakened each day by the light so we can walk in the light. We cannot live independent from the light. We were made for light, and that light is Jesus. The Bible begins in the book of Genesis, and it's a fascinating beginning to the story that ends in the final chapters of the book of Revelation. The very first 2 chapters of Genesis describes a reality where there is no pride. It's a reality where you encounter in the narrative the Creator creating Adam and Eve and placing them into a setting where they would understand from the moment that they began to open their eyes and breathe in life and to live in the Garden of Eden, that they were not the cause of that which was sustaining them. They were not the origin of their own experience of life. They were living in the light of the reality of having come into being because God brought them to life and gave them life. So we have 2 chapters in the Bible where pride is completely absent. By the time we get to chapter 3 in the book of Genesis, pride arrives in the garden. It was the pride of the liar, Satan, who brings the temptation to Eve, and he says to her that if she would eat of the knowledge of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, then her eyes would open and she would be able to be like God. In other words, she would need less of God for sure. But I think even worse than that, Satan was saying, you don't even need God to be what you want to be. In fact, you can be something better without God. And so begins the human drama that we are living in right now. And it's a drama of mankind insisting that they can be what they need to be without the Creator, without God. And so right from the very beginning, the pride keeps us from coming into the light that Jesus said he is. And when he said, without me, you can do nothing that the Creator would have you to do, because you cannot do what the Creator would have you do without the Creator. When I wake up every morning, I have a lot of little habits that I've developed over the last 45 or 50 years that help me to move into what I call a state of receptivity or poverty of spirit. One of them is a little saying that I use, and many of you have heard this before. It's this. I begin my day and I say, I don't know, but Jesus knows. I am not, but Jesus is. I do not have, but Jesus has. I cannot, but Jesus can. It sounds like I'm putting myself down. It sounds like I'm emptying myself of my own illusions of my ability apart from the Creator. Actually, I am emptying myself. I'm opening up myself to receive the ability that only can come from God, which is the ability to be the Creator, to be what the Creator intended for me to be. A person who can continuously love in the vertical toward God and love on the horizontal toward my neighbor. If I hope to be what I was created to be, I must begin at zero before God. I learned this lesson in the city of Lisbon, Portugal, many years ago, where I was standing on the side of the River Tagus, and it flows through the city of Lisbon, and it empties out into the Atlantic Ocean. And it was from that place that the famous caravel ships of the Portuguese nation over 500 years ago conquered the world and the seas. They were a small country, but they dominated the oceans because of a new technology which was called the caravel, special built ship that allowed them to move faster around the world. And I was standing along that side of that river and imagining myself in one of those wooden ships that weighed tons and tons of wood, and thinking of what it must have been like to go out of that river into the ocean in that wooden boat with no motor, and realized that if I was going to get from Europe to Brazil, and back in the days when they began these trips in those ships, it would have been about a 6-week trip, depending on the wind. That they would be waiting for the wind, and the way that they would admit their powerlessness every day would be to lift up the sails. And the lifting up of the empty sails was an admission that I do not have the power to advance my life to where I really want to go. I do not have within me the power to simply decide I'm going to love, I'm going to forgive, I'm going to eliminate covetousness, I'm going to obey God's commands. The beginning of every day for the people on a caravel 500 years ago coming from Europe to Brazil would have been a clear admission by raising those sails and waiting for the wind that they could not. Now, pride is the opposite of that. Pride says, I know, you don't. I am, you're not. I have, you don't. I can, you cannot. Anytime you hear someone looking at another human being and using the words, I know, you don't, I can, you can't, prepare yourself. Death of relationship is very close. Prepare yourself. We could be on the brink of war. Every time we are filled with pride, we begin to lose our humanity. And as we lose our humanity, We are not far from violence, and we are not far from hating other people and giving ourselves permission to think less of another human being. Pride is no game. Pride is deadly. And one sign that you are in the light is that you know what you cannot do. And then you know what God can do. And then you find how you move to where you want to go and where you want to be. Eliminate pride. And the best way I know to do that is come to Jesus. And suddenly you'll see that it's better that he is and you're not, and he knows and you don't, and he can and you can't, because then you can move forward. Lift up the sails, empty, and let the Spirit of God move you to where you need to go. God bless you. Have a great day. Think with Jesus.